Get your hands on stylish t-shirts, hoodies, and more at wearbuff.com. That's wearbuff.com. And make sure to use the promo code TWB at checkout for 20% off your first order. Stay Buffalo proud with Wear Buff. Buffalo Bills hold on to beat the New York Jets 23-20 this week on the Wandering Buffalo podcast.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your host, Justin Goddard.
Bills Mafia, welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show on the Buffalo FamBase podcast network. My name is Justin. I'll be your host today. And today we'll be breaking down this game against the Jets. The Bills obviously come away with the win 23-20 in what was just really kind of a weird game. This is definitely not an episode. We're going to talk about officiating in this episode. I really hate talking about officiating. I don't like it to be, where we place blame after a loss. I don't like sorting through if the refs gave us the game when we win. This, to me, was just an all-around bad game, and I don't think it really favored in one direction or the other. There's bad calls all over the place, and the refs, especially in the second half, just kind of became the stars of the show. And like I said, I think it went both ways. I think, there's a terrible roughing call on Epinesa. Does he land with his body weight on Rodgers? Sure. But also in the process of going to the ground, he's trying to scrape the ball out and the ball's moving a little bit. So that's a whole different process of the sack versus just landing on him, which I don't think should be an issue to start with. But you even have Aaron Rodgers post game saying that's not roughing the passer, but okay. I thought going the other way, there was a pretty weak call on Javon Kinlaw for a roughing the passer against Josh Allen. There was Bills were a benefit of a pass interference call that looked like it was pretty well airmailed over Matt Collins. Just flags all over the place, and I don't know, man. Officiating at times makes it hard to really love the NFL. It's just there becomes no flow to the game, and a play happens, and it's not even enjoying the play as it happens. The first thing I'm doing is looking for the flag, and in this game, 22 penalties accepted for between both teams for over 200 yards, and we're not even talking about offsetting penalties, anything that was declined, all of that. 19 total plays run in the game, and you have 22 accepted penalties. You're talking a fifth of the game being flagged. And I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and officiating's bad in all the sports, don't get me wrong. It's a challenge in all sports. I think in football it becomes more glaring because you can have a defensive foul in basketball and whatever, it stops the momentum of that possession, but you take it back up top and everything's quick succession going back and forth. In football, you have a 3rd and 20 defensive stop, and we'll use the Epinesa sack for an example. You think you're getting off the field, and not only do they get to redo the play, the automatic first down extend the yardage extends what the foul is. Drive keeps going, and you only get and maybe 6-7 drives a game. So like only had that stop of field. They get to continue the drive. You give up points when you should have been getting the ball back. It just has such a huge impact on football games, and it's really frustrating whether the calls, even when the calls are going for us, it's like, just fucking stop. It's so over officiated. It's just becomes an inferior product. So that's kind of my monologue on the officiating. Hopefully we don't have to talk about it much in the coming weeks, but I'm sure we will. Well, new temporary setup for those of you watching on YouTube. If you tuned in last week, you know that my wife and I have just moved into a house and everything is kind of in flux and probably going to toy with a lot of setups. So we have for this week. If you hate it, probably won't be back. If you love it, probably still won't be back. So we'll see. Just have some grace with me as I figure out my ideal setup. Getting into some other things from the game, I thought Josh Allen had a nice, efficient game for the most part. There was a little section in the second half there where we started doing let's take some shots type deal, and I don't know, I have a hard time those when they happen. In this game, at least, it was like a little quick segment, and then they went back to just efficient offense. And I know Josh Allen has talked in the past about, he's got to make sure he doesn't get bored with, the short stuff, the staying on schedule stuff. I don't know, man. It's hard for me to wrap my head around like how hard it is to win in the NFL, and when they're doing this quick hit stuff and getting the ball out of his hands and running the offense on schedule, like it looks unstoppable. And then at some point, it's like, okay, we got to move away from this. Josh Allen does, seal the win with his bootleg there. And I saw reports that he kind of called his own number on that. It was a called toss to Ray Davis, and Josh was like, nah, I'm keeping this. I don't know the validity of that, whatever, but for me, that should be a play called sprinkled into any possession that you have where you basically need a first down to win the game. That play call should be one of the 3 plays you're running. Glad we saw it. Gets the game over, get to go home. So love the way we finished that. Finished it off there. Overall, 19 of 25 on the day for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not doing crazy things from a fantasy team, but I'll take it all day. I'll take efficient Josh Allen, especially with all the newness on this offense. I don't need him throwing for 400 yards. Control the clock, be efficient, incorporate the run game, and that's going to be successful more times than not. My guy Ray Davis getting the action in this game with James Cook out, and I was hopeful that we'd see a healthy dose of Ray Davis. I had another friend so should I pick up Ray Davis or Ty Johnson? They're both available, and I honestly have no idea how this is going to go in a division game that, has a lot of implications. We've seen McDermott, lean into the veterans because he trusts them to, take care of the ball, and maybe they're not as explosive or whatever, but we've kind of seen a little bit of a conservative, let's make sure we're not turning the ball over approach. So I was thinking in this game, it would be, at best a 50-50 split with Ty Johnson. And I was completely wrong there. And not only did Ray Davis control the giant majority of the rushing attempts, he had a huge impact on the number of touches for the offense in general. I looked at it. It was either 59 or 60 plays that the Bills ran. Jets were one, Bills were the other. And of plays, Ray Davis had 23 touches, which is pretty crazy for me to wrap my head around. Something like 40 something, I'm not good at math, 40 something % of the plays went to a rookie running back who has seen very limited action. So all of that was very surprising to me. The young man makes the most of his opportunities, averaged almost 5 yards per carry, 20 carries, 97 yards, 3 for 3 receiving for 55 yards, and one of those being the big, 42-yard pass down the field, super awkward looking, weird, unnecessary jump, but got the job done. And that was a huge play. I think there ended up being a penalty on the play anyways, that the Bills would have had a first down, but backed up deep in their own territory. It was 3rd and long, 2nd and long, something like that, and able to make himself available for Josh Allen and show some receiving skills. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, you know that my preseason hot take was Ray Davis would overtake James Cook as RB1 by the end of the season. And I have pretty much put that one to rest just because of how good Cook has looked to start the season. Now, I do think, if he misses any extended amount of time, maybe it changes the scenario a little bit. But what I think realistic now is we have a pair of running backs that both can hurt you in different ways. And I just don't see a world where Cook comes back healthy and you can ignore, a 150-yard performance from your rookie running back in really his first real NFL action, getting substantial workload and against kind of a vaunted Jets defense. So great day for the young man. Excited to see kind of what that looks like going forward, and touched on it briefly here, but as we move into the receiving game here, also led the team in yards receiving on just 3 targets. Rounding out the rest, Kincaid, 6 catches on 7 attempts, 51 yards. Curtis Samuel, 3 for 4 for 44. Keon Coleman, 3 for 4 for 25. Shakir, 2 for 2, 19. Knox had 1 catch, 12 yards and a touchdown, and Hollins 1 catch on 2 targets for 8 yards and a touchdown. And I'm good with how this spread looks right here. I like seeing Cade lead the team in targets. Would love to see him get sprinkled in a little bit more vertical to his game, but getting him the ball in space and letting him create a little bit. There's a play where he flattened 2 Jets defenders. I like the little bit of physicality to his nature. He looks smooth catching the ball. I think this was kind of his best game of the season so far, and love to see it. I loved seeing Curtis Samuel getting involved, and again, not a crazy stat line from him. His long reception for the day was 38 yards, so without that, 2 catches on 3 targets for 6 yards. Like, that's not super encouraging. But seeing him get the ball down the field, kind of like he was running a go route and saw Josh Allen kind of breaking the pocket and making himself available to Josh Allen out of structure. I think that was the most encouraging for me from like a chemistry standpoint of learning how to play together. And I've talked a little bit about all of the new pieces on this offense and how much different there is from the offensive line to the receivers to running back room, just all over the place. There's a ton of new to this offense. Do I think it would still behoove the Bills to make a move at receiver? Yeah, absolutely. I talked about this a little bit last week, and I don't think you're going to go add a huge name like Devontae Adams, which, by the way, as of the recording of this podcast, is officially off the table. The Jets decided to trade for him after the game against the Bills, which is just splendid for for us as Bills fans. Let them figure that out after us, whatever. I think what you see more here is a move to replace or upgrade MVS. I just think that you haven't gotten much there. Crazy scenario that I've thrown out there with some people, mostly to negative reviews, is like, what if the Bills' deadline move is calling the Jaguars and bringing back Gabe Davis? He's got something like a $1.2 million base salary for the remainder of the year. If he never left the building and he was always in a wide receiver 4 or 5 role, he was amazing in that role. Super fun in that role. Takes care of the blocking, upgrades you. I don't know. Just something I'll throw out there. Comments. Let me know how you'd feel about that idea if there was a world where you brought Gabe Davis back as a wide receiver or whatever. Interesting to think about. Keon Coleman, overall a pretty quiet day. Getting involved. See how that develops. And Shakir, only 2 catches for 19 yards. He did, go get you a bucket when you needed a first down with a drag route. I was super concerned about what this offense would look like if he missed another week, and glad we didn't really have to find out in a game where he didn't have to have a huge impact. Defensively, got to start with Taron Johnson. Boy, is it nice to have that guy back. He was shaking off a little bit of rust in the beginning of the game. A couple missed tackles and like being out of position. That's super rare for Taron Johnson. But when it matters most, came up with the game-sealing interception. It was, a weird play for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers talks about it after the game, saying, like, basically Mike Williams wasn't where he was supposed to be, which kind of leads to the underthrown ball, and you cut it. Taron Johnson's peeling off a different receiver and making a spectacular play on the ball. So that was super awesome. Thought AJ Epinesa had his best game of the season. 2 sacks, for whatever it's worth for the flag that was thrown on him, which was absolutely nonsense. But for a team that's currently missing Von Miller, who had a great start to the season, you're kind of wondering where the sack production might be coming from. We haven't seen Groot really lighting up the stat sheet in that department, and Epinesa able to have a very impactful game. Daquan Jones doing his thing, got another sack. I thought Dwayne Carter continues looking good. Overall, just kind of a pretty exciting defensive performance. Taylor Rapp super impactful game, had at least 2 plays that, saved points. There was the breakup in the end zone on Garrett Wilson, kind of combined with Hamlin there, but he was the one that knocked the ball out. And then the, Breece Hall running free, and he's the only thing in between Breece Hall and the end zone. He's able to make a touchdown. The Jets go on, he's able to make the tackle, stop the touchdown. Jets go on to kick a field goal there. Ends up being a super impactful play, and I feel like that, I want to give kudos to Rep as much as I want to criticize Breece Hall in that play, because that's one man to beat. You don't see Breece Hall go down very often, sniffing at the end zone. So, was it kind of a down play for Breece Hall, or was it just that good of a play from Taylor Rapp? I don't know, but our guy made the stop. Exciting. Kind of, it was a pretty good defensive performance, despite, how much yards they gave up. All that to say that still the Hail Mary, and I don't love the play call there. I don't know why these thumbs up keep coming up, but whatever. Don't love the play call in that position of only rushing 2, dropping 9 in coverage. But with that being said, they still have 9 in coverage. Whether or not you're getting after the quarterback, have 5 linemen that are there to protect. So, just a numbers game. You got the receivers matched up 2-to-1 everywhere. This has happened so many times against the Bills. I can't wrap my head around these sequences. One of them happening here and there, whatever. But first of all, I'm never only sending 2 rushers. I don't want the quarterback to be as comfortable as they want back there, let alone it's Aaron Rodgers, who, honestly, he's the best Hail Mary thrower that I've ever seen, for what it's worth. I'm trying to get after the quarterback there too. I'm not, blitzing or anything, but I'm sending my 4. I can have my safeties way back, but other than that, just play defense. Every time we try to do these weird prevent defenses, bad things happen. I'm sitting here in my attic recording this. I don't have all the answers for you. I'm not going to claim to be smarter than any of these football minds. I will say that we've seen enough of the sample size of the Bills trying to play a prevent defense where it goes very poorly. And I don't know how much I can put this on Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott, because like I said, you have 9 people drop back in coverage. Somebody track the ball and knock it to the ground. It's called a Hail Mary for a reason. Super low percentage play. Don't see them accomplish very often, but 3-4 of these in recent memory happening to us. Do something different. With special teams, got to talk about Tyler Bass again. And I don't have the answer here either. I know there's some camp implications of Bass being guaranteed money because he was extended early. I know, these great NFL kickers aren't just growing on trees. It's also a game where the opponent missed 2 field goals. So, was wind a factor? Sure, had to be. But what I really struggle with Bass is when he has these misses that are weird knuckleball, super off target, kicks that never had a reasonable chance of going in. And like so many kickers you see in the NFL, like when wind becomes issue, like it's going straight and it drifts to the left or it drifts to the right. Don't see very many other instances of these wild knuckleball kicks. And I don't know the answer. I think it's super easy to just say, I think it's super easy to say, get on the bus, like after that game, whatever. That being said, like that's easy to say. What's the solution to replace them? Are you really bringing in somebody better? Who's out there? All those things. That gets a little bit more complicated. But what I will say is we don't have a kicker on the practice squad. In the off season, we didn't bring in competition. It has just been status quo, Tyler Bass's job. And I think at the very least, you need to start with bringing somebody into your building to kick some balls during practice and see if you might like that person better. In years past, it wouldn't be something as hugely concerning to me. The Bills like to score points in bunches, and I think with this team, you can win a lot of games. I think there's going to be a lot of games that look a lot more like last night than the Bills boat racing teams. I think you're kind of set up to play sound defense, limit what the other team is doing, and just kind of do enough on offense, stay on schedule. And maybe that changes throughout the season and we're able to start scoring more in bunches. But as it stands right now, we're setting up to be in a good handful of games that are going to come down to a kick. And I don't feel good about Bass trotting out there for a PAT. Like, if we're not getting it done in that situation, what does it look like when, we're down 21-20 against a team and we need a 50-yard field goal with 7 seconds left on the clock, and you got to feel good about trotting Bass out there or doing a Hail Mary of your own. Don't really know where to go with that, but hey, it's noon. I want to see the Bills at least add a practice squad kicker by the end of the day and see where it goes from there. But end of the day, it was a pretty wild game. With the officiating in the second half, it was borderline unwatchable. Got really, really tough to hang in there. But the Bills have a pretty nice slate coming up here, starting with the Titans next week. A team that's in absolute shambles. They're 1-4 coming into Buffalo. We have a Sunday at 1 o'clock kickoff. Love it. I miss my Sundays at 1 so much. So hopefully we can, kind of put this little 2-game skid behind us, stack a few wins here, and really create some preparation in the division and go from there. But Bills win. We get to enjoy that for the week while we prepare for the Titans. And it wasn't a pretty one, but, division games are often tougher. Jets in particular like to play the Bills pretty close. So happy to get out of this one with a win. That rivalry is getting pretty chippy. A lot of extracurriculars going on the field yesterday. I can only imagine that ramps up as the season goes on. So kind of a fun actual rivalry being created there, and I like that. So we'll see what happens. Next week we got the Titans, so we'll be breaking down that game next week. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. Like I've been talking about over the past few weeks, kind of some crazy stuff going on in my life right now, trying to stay super consistent with the recording schedule, but working a lot, going to school full time, starting an internship. Everything's kind of all over the place. Just moved into a house. So a lot going on. Make sure you're subscribed. You won't miss any episodes. And thank you again for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week after the Titans game. As always, go Bills.